do when you're self-employed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I was going to say that I think all of you brought up great points. Is that there's no definitive answer of what work-life balance is, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of like I can't tell you that 3 hours on, 3 hours off, that's work-life balance. It's whatever works for you. You know when you're out of balance, you know when things are working in order. And it also depends largely on your own situation also, right? So if you're single, if you don't have a family that you need to kind of spend time with or anything else like that, you're able to put in more work now. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with putting in more work now, knowing that later on you might have to scale back, right?
Mhm.
Right.
As long as you're doing it without
values.
burning yourself out. Yep.
Right.
And just it's understanding your own situation. And if your situation allows you to do more work while still, maybe you can work for 40 hours a week and then you only need 4 hours of leisure time or anything like that to help you reset, right? If that's all it requires, then that's still work-life balance, even though it's 40 versus 4. On the other hand, if you have a family or anything else, you may only be able to put in like a good few 4 hours of solid work and then have to spend another few 4 hours taking care of your family, spending time with them and whatnot. I think it's a very much a qualitative thing, not necessarily a quantitative thing.
Yeah.
What the balance is.
So there's a value assessment thing involved there, right? Like you have shifting values at the different times. Like if you have family, obviously that should be an absolute priority, and that's part of the reason that you work the way that you do when you're not involved with them. So there are several things at play all at once. How do you get in trying to make that scale and assessment, what kind of system should you, or is there even a system? Because we are all different, but what kind of system should we try to use to determine the values that are important, the ones to get some kind of a hierarchy and to learn how to prioritize them? Because you were talking about us being the goods at a point. So obviously we have to have self-care and the things that inspire and motivate us in order to be the best version that we can be. When for me it's on screen or interacting with other people, at the same time as I have to feel motivated to get on the camera, at the same time as I have to make sure that my health and wellness is there, at the same time as I have to try to date people sometimes and hang out with friends in the real life. And, I don't want one of those to suddenly take priority just because that's my emotional reaction in the moment. As you guys have seen, and a lot of people in the chat have seen, when I feel motivated to work, it's hard to get me not to. It's hard to get me to go to sleep. It's hard to get me off the camera. But learning, and that's the subject here in the first place, learning how to make the assessment, how to prioritize, and see where those values lie. Do you guys have some kind of a structure for that? For like what people could hear to go like, oh, that's how I should prioritize stuff, or that's how I should consider my own valuation?
So one of the things that I do with clients, and I've been with some of my newer clients, I haven't done it yet because with tax time, it was a rush to get things done before the deadline.
Certainly.
But a normal part of my process with new clients on the financial planning side is to walk through, there's a couple different exercises. So background wise, the industry that I'm in came from selling insurance, came from selling investments, but it's really moved to be much more holistic and human focused. Some people who are like long time in the industry try and like deride it as like, oh, we're not therapists. And it's like, maybe we should be in a little bit of a way though, where we've started to recognize that like the goal of money isn't necessarily just to amass the biggest pile, but actually to be the thing that allows you to do what you want. So as a part of that sort of evolution of my industry, there have been a lot more studies that have shown that have helped you sort of find different ways to do it, as well as different like philosophies around, they call it like life planning basically. And there were a couple things that came out of those in terms of helping clients do this kind of figuring out. Some of it is just straight up like, as sort of lame as it sounds, questionnaires, but it's the whole point of it is having people try and reflect on what would be valuable for them. And some of the ways that you do it, one that I really like is from a guy named George Kinder, who is big time into, he sort of started this movement called financial life planning, where one of his initial things that he does with clients is his big 3 questions. And it's, I can pull up the specifics on it, but there's one that's, what would you do if you went into the doctor for a normal thing and they told you that you have 5 to 10 years left to live. You won't feel sick. You won't know the specific day that you die. You'll be able to operate fully on your own. How does that make you, first of all, how does that make you feel? Second, what do you do in the time that you have left? What changes would you make in your life, and how would you go about it? And you give people time to reflect on that. You give them time to think through, okay, what would I change? And some of the nuggets that come out of that aren't necessarily, I mean, the specific things are very useful, but what you're also looking for a lot is themes. Is it spend more time with family? Is it something that they haven't done yet that they really wanted to start on, but it had always been like one of those future things, but now that they're forced to confront it now, they make it a little more, imminent? Is it just, sometimes it's just things like seeing the world or writing a book or whatever. And those are really
like side roads into developing vision, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's what it is. I mean, all of this is trying to help people like really focus. The other, the next question, once you've asked that one, is, and I missed the first one. I jumped to number 2 because I couldn't remember off the top of my head. The second one is that, same situation, walk into the doctor and you're told you've got 24 hours. And then you ask yourself, what haven't you done that you wish you could have done? What's unfulfilled? What did you miss? What is disappointing you right now? And that is sort of the flip side of the one is much more geared towards what will you do, and one is much more geared towards what have you missed. And they both, as you said, they both get at the vision thing, but they get at it from different directions. And expectation and joy can lead you down a different path than regret, but both give you insight. And that can be really helpful. And this is the kind of situation too, where sometimes you get crying, and that's not something that I personally mind. I think it's can be a kind of healthy thing, but it's also something that I know the people in my industry who are much more just straight numbers oriented kind of shy away from. So those two help at it. And then the third one is the one that you got as a student, where the counselor was asking you questions, but it's just, imagine you never have to worry about money again.
Right.
How do you live your life? Would you change anything? What would happen? Those kinds of stuff. So those I found help a lot because they help you get into some of the mentalities around this kind of thing. And then, there are other questionnaires with similar ideas, but I like all of those for for some of this, because it helps you get big themes. And then when you're making decisions about your work-life balance or how you're going to structure your day, those kinds of things, you can refer back to those big themes. Not that they make every decision for you, but that they help guide you towards maybe a decision that will be long-term better for you.
I think it's really easy to get bogged down in your everyday stuff, right? Yeah. Especially easily referenced here with the streaming. It's, well, depending on the situation, it can feel really easy to just click the start button, and then you after thousands and thousands of hours of streaming, it's really easy to just flow with it and to just go and to have that be your daily thing. But in the absence of vision, what are you trying to do long term? You're going to find yourself, and this is probably true of everybody doing anything, you're going to find yourself 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, looking back going what have I been doing this whole time? I haven't been building value. I don't feel like I've had an enriched life. Well, you have, I was talking about this the other day, you do actually have a time machine, and the time machine is called wisdom and perspective. You can look forward to 10 years from now, exactly what you're talking about, and wonder and ask, what would that person, hopefully a better version of yourself, look back and wish they had done. You can do that right now, right? You have the opportunity to start building that life that you want that future you to be living, and look back without regret in the meantime. And I really like the idea of going in and building that vision early. I think one critical piece to add into what you were saying is literally writing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of us do this same thing where hearing you say those questions, we'll sit and we'll think about it for a split second. And then because it's the 21st century, we get distracted 3 seconds into it, and we're doing something else. And there's another subject and there's another tweet and there's another stream and whatever. Taking an actual timer and setting it for 10 minutes, and giving or 3 minutes per question,
right?
Answer each one of those questions, actually writing it down concretizes the ideas way more than just allowing it to float nebulously in your head for a little bit.
Yeah, and even when you're looking at it in a short term,